No,
Yeah, I think this is like this last week. Yeah.
Well, I just,
Yeah, sure.
I kind of came around to the field. No, I didn't. I didn't. At first, I was skeptical. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I thought,
Yeah, yeah, he's been there for a while.
yeah.
you know, just to know where
Yeah, I think this is his last week. He only comes back
It's
on
like
Saturday.
north of, yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe this is the car. Is that the car?
Well, back in
No,
the
I'm
day,
not
they
sure
were
which
like-
car it was.
Oh, my buddy was
Further.
It's not that bad.
High school here,
Yeah.
You can invest in something. That's kind of how
not to Mcgee apartments right here,
everybody here's invested. in.
Domino's,
Good on him.
Arby's, pizza.
Ask Commissioner Skeen to do the invocation.
Please bow your heads and pray. Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, serve the city and this commission. Please be with us through this meeting. Please, Father, remember our police, fire, EMS, our local and state officials. Be with them and guide them. In your name we pray. Amen.
We got a roll call.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Here.
Commissioner Thorne,
Here.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Max,
Here.
Commissioner Jordan,
Here.
Commissioner Hawkins,
Here.
Commissioner Skeen,
Here.
Commissioner Brumbelow.
Here.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion of approval.
Second.
We'll have a vote.
Commissioner Thorne,
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow,
Aye.
Commissioner Max,
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth,
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen.
Aye.
All right, our first order of business is PL 1639, Robertson and Highway 51, C4 Rezoning. Request to rezone 1.2 acres consisting of 2 lots from R12 single-family residential medium density to C4 planned commercial. The subject properties are located on the west side of Highway 51 and north of Robertson Street. More specifically, 2165 Highway 51 South and 340 West Robertson Street in Section 13, Township 3 South, Range 8 West. Ben Smith, IPD Solutions, representing Prewett Holdings, owner of the properties.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself with this one.
So, Mr. Cardos, will you present the staff's reports and comments, please?
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, this is PL 1639, a zoning map amendment request from R12 single-family residential, which is medium density, to the C4 planned commercial district. You just mentioned the staff, the description in the introduction, but it is 2 parcels. The parcel numbers are listed in your staff report. Address is 2165 Highway 51 South and 340 West Robinson Street. Currently, the property is being used as single-family residential and is surrounded by the following zoning district designations. To the north is R12, previously zoned C4 but was rezoned back to R12 in 2014. To the south is R12 and C2, which is the parking lot of the adjacent property to the south. East is both C2 and C4 zoning, and to the west is single-family R12 zoning. In the comprehensive plan, the future land use category is recommended to be single-family low-density dependent land use designation. So primarily, this is geared towards a residential future land use, an average density of 1 to 3 dwelling units per acre, and it does recommend that any development be located along collector or major arterial roadways. The applicable zoning language in the comprehensive plan for non-residential uses, which is the request tonight, is that they are only encouraged within residential neighborhoods when they provide necessary convenience activities and don't require a service area of greater than that neighborhood. So the comprehensive plan does allow for some commercial, but just not on a large scale. And it says non-residential structures should not exceed 5,000 square feet. And so that's something to keep in mind is residential is recommended to be allowable in this future land use plan, but only on a small scale basis as described. Particular to this request, I've included a description of what a C4 designation is, the definition of what it is, and what's required. And so two main pieces are required with a C4 submittal, and it's proposed uses, which we'll go over here in just a second, and a site plan that generates applicable buffer areas, where the buildings can be, entrances and exits, and that's included in your staff report, and I'll go over that in here in just a second as well. It is to note the subject property is just outside the Hernando Historic District overlay, so it is not included, but it is close. The applicant proposes the following uses to be included in the plan, and so what this means is these uses would be allowable and anything else would not be. And so what they propose is a bakery, a barber shop, a daycare facility, doctor's or dentist's office, banks and financial services to exclude short-term loan or check cashing, an exercise center, a flower shop, nursery school, office, retail shops, vet clinics to exclude outdoor kennels, and then food service as a part of a retail center, meaning it would have to be located in a strip mall or some sort of small group of businesses. And then accessory uses as in the zoning ordinance, so fences, accessory storage, stuff like that. The site plan does show a very small actual buildable area once you can consider the 20-foot and 30-foot buffer yards as shown on the site plan. So when you accommodate the small building area and the proposed uses, it is in general keeping with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. The setbacks, landscape buffers, and the applicant did submit a tree survey of what could be saved on the site for existing hardwood canopy, and that's included on the third or fourth page of your staff report. When you see along 51 and along Robertson Street shows a 50-foot front setback, a proposed buffer yard of 20 foot along the northern and western boundary lines, and final design of these and fencing and building materials will be determined when the applicant, if approved, would be coming through building permit review. And so the area you see is where the building would sit, but final building materials we would address during final design review. When considering a rezoning, there are three criteria that we direct the Planning Commission to form their decision around, and I'll read those for the record. How this proposed amendment would conform to the general development plan. The applicant is required to address why the existing zoning district classification of the property is either inappropriate or improper, and what major economic, physical, or social changes, if any, have occurred in the vicinity of the property in question that were not anticipated by the general development plan and have substantially altered the basic character of the area, which make the proposed amendment to the zoning district map appropriate. So those are the three criteria the applicant's required to demonstrate, and that's what we should form our decision around tonight. The applicant did provide a response, and I've included that in your staff report, to address those three questions. To wrap it up, this is a request to go from R12 to C4, which is the planned commercial. And the recommendation tonight, either approval or denial, will go in front of the Board of Aldermen on October 18th. And so the recommendation tonight would carry to that meeting. And I've included copies of the R12 district regulations and the C4 district regulations in your staff report, as well as a site map, a zoning map, the language from the comprehensive plan, and then also the applicant's proposal is in there as well. This concludes my report. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant's here as well.
We have any questions from the commissioners?
How many, is it 1.2 acres?
1.85. It's the larger parcel's 1.2 and the smaller is 0.6. So total, I believe the agenda just said 1.2, but the two parcels together in the staff report are 1.85.
And I saw in the proposed motion it said 4.8.
Yeah, that's a typo. It's 1.85.
Was it, did you say it was once zone commercial?
This property wasn't. The property to the north used to be zone C4, The family purchased it and then requested to rezone it back to R12. So the property just to the north went from commercial to residential in 2014.
That was the Tippett property?
Yes, sir.
All right, will the applicant please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety?
Mr. Chairman, Board, I'm Ben Smith, 2700 Stonebrook in Nesbit, and I represent the owner, who is Mr. Bruce Prewett, is here tonight also. So, thank you. This track is located at one of the busiest intersections in Hernando. For several years, it was not even a four-way stop, then it was a four-way stop, and now there's signals there that was installed by MDOT due to the heavy increase in traffic. What we're witnessing is that people are avoiding Commerce Street and turning south after they get off the interstate, head towards the square, and get on Robertson Street and bypass the square. So there's been a tremendous increase in traffic at that corner. That is one of the changes that has occurred. The city itself has recognized that corner as being a less a residential corner and more of a commercial corner, because they rezoned the two corners across the street. One of them to C2, by the way, which is highway commercial. And if you look at the list of permitted uses in highway commercial, you'll be kind of shocked to see what could go on a C2 lot that's on C2, although it's a retail center. The other corner has also been rezoned to C4. So the city itself has recognized that that intersection is fastly becoming a commercial intersection by its own rezoning of tracts of property around it. As is mentioned, the property to the north at one time was zoned C4, and I think he mentioned 2014, so the city has really zoned the piece to C4. They did ask to go back to R12. There's a big industrial site to the north of us. The traffic's going to increase even more. So that is a commercial corner. The zoning R12 we think is improper due to the increase in the traffic and the signals that are there. So the site plan, I'd like to talk more about the site plan if I could, because we spent considerable time and money. We did a tree survey. Now, if you've been out there and seen the site, there's some beautiful old growth trees there. I think my surveyor identified them as being oak trees, but I think some of them are pecan trees there. So we located the house and we located the trees, and what we're proposing to do is to increase the front buffer along Highway 51 to 30 feet so that we can save those trees if you look at the site plan. Those are 15 oaks, 26-inch oaks. They may be pecan trees, but 30-inch, and so you see that's 30-inch, so we're trying to save those. On the rear of the property, we're asking to decrease that buffer to 30 feet because 20-foot buffer will include all those old growth pines that separate this lot from the resident to the west. So we think with the buffers and the setbacks that it will impact the residents to the west and also one to the north. There's a lot of tree growth to the north also. We moved the entrance to this lot from 51 Highway as north as we possibly can to get away from the intersection. As you know, traffic backs up for a long ways in the afternoon as people are coming back. So we moved the intersection back. We're going to use the existing driveway location on Robertson Street, however, to give us another entrance in that site. We show the setback, and the area that you see that's shaded or dotted is the building area. It's a very small building area. It will accommodate a 5,000 square foot building, however, with the parking that's required. Now the uses, we trimmed down the uses. This C4 district is like Mr. Cardozi said, only these uses will be allowed. No other uses than what's listed here will be allowed on this lot. So we trimmed down the list to what we think, and hopefully you'd think also it would be suitable for that lot. I'll discuss any one of those if you like, but they're just small uses and create no excess noise or sound noise or smoke or anything else. They're really a neighborhood commercial.
That's the uses listed on page 2.
The uses are listed on his report. They're in Austin's report. But
Yeah, page 2.
let me find those real quick.
Page 2, that's correct.
There's 13 uses, 13 uses that we're proposing there. And only those uses will be allowed. Now, the may ask about the food service, number 12. We think if there is a small retail strip built there like it is at the north east corner, there's a retail strip. If a Domino's or a Lenny's or something like that want to put a sub shop in, it would be part of that retail center. It would not be a standalone restaurant. So it has to be part of a retail center. But bakery, barbershop, daycare facility, doctor or dentist office, everything is listed right here is usually closing at 10 o'clock at night. Exercise center, someone mentioned about possibility of putting a closing date on it. We have no problem. If you think we need to put in there that it has to be closed at 10 o'clock. There are some 24-hour exercise centers. That's not the intent of this list. So we would agree to a 10 o'clock closing on if a exercise center were to locate there. Flower shop, nursery school, office, retail shops. Veterinary clinic, you have one right down the street. No outdoor kennels, however. Has to be inside. And food service is part of a retail center, so I think we've shown that area is changing, it's continuing to change. You've gone as far north with the commercial zoning that you have a convenience store and service station now on North Parkway and Highway 51. So I'll ask any question you may have or try to answer any questions that you may have. This is our intent, and we're going to try to save the trees if we possibly can.
Y'all considered doing this as a PUD?
I'm sorry?
As a PUD?
No, it's a C4.
Or have you considered doing it as a PUD? That way, the building would be, get a better idea of exactly what's going on.
We have to come back before, you have a design review, it's called Certificate of Development here. We have to submit plans.
I understand,
Yeah.
but if we would kind of get an idea of what's going in there and what it's going to look like beforehand.
We
Do it all
don't,
at one time.
we can't, as I stand here, we can't tell you what it's going to look like.
Well, that saves us, we kind of do everything at once rather than going commercial, and then once we go commercial, it's not.
I agree. It's from your viewpoint, from a developer's viewpoint, is he tries to market a lot. If it's already zoned, he's much better shape than trying to sell something subject to rezoning. But we do have to go through your certificate of development phase, which we have to submit plans, and the looks of the building. That's going on, by the way. As we said, every day there's buildings being looked at by your staff, so this is no different. I think they're doing a good job.
We can assume it's going to be a retail center though, right?
Sure.
We can assume it'll be a retail center?
I don't know. I don't think Mr. Prewett knows. No.
All the
Well,
trees
but we
on
do
the-
know it won't be anything other than what you see on your list.
All the trees on the inside of those buffers,
Yes, sir.
are those planned to come down?
Those inside the buffers, no.
Those, you're going to keep all those too?
We're gonna keep everything within that 30-foot buffer,
No, the
20-foot
ones
buffer
inside
on the
the buffer.
north, and anywhere you see the word buffer, all of those trees within that
Those
buffer,
could go because of
it will be saved. The one on the south is, I understand, is a ginkgo, or somebody told me what kind of tree it was, but it's a rare tree, and we're gonna try to save it also.
And on the site map and stuff, it says Cal Wilkins is as owner. Is he still, is it sold?
Bruce, do you own it now? Cal still, you own it? He owns it.
Gotcha.
I thought he did, because he's the applicant.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith?
The building, I know that you don't have the building yet, but I mean, Austin was talking about the number of square feet. How many square feet building footage are y'all anticipating?
Maximum 5,000.
You are intending?
Yeah. We don't know. We think that house, if it can be converted, but I don't think that house can be converted to it may be an insurance office. They did the one on the southeast corner has been converted to a insurance or loan.
Mortgage,
or
yeah.
something like that. It was converted, so that's not out of the question, but we would not build anything there over 5,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, I know you mentioned about the drive on Robinson that y'all would probably keep. What about on 51, there would be, okay, I see it now. I see it.
Yeah, we will not use that existing drive. It's hard to get in and out of that driveway now, especially when traffic backs up. So we're moving it as far away from the intersection as possible.
And frankly, that's my concern too. I travel that intersection every day.
Mm-hmm.
It is, especially during the late afternoon, there's traffic everywhere.
I was there coming here. I experienced it on the way here.
And in the mornings, it's bad going east on Robinson. Especially the way that MDOT was kind enough to put in those lights. The turn arrows didn't necessarily have to be there,
Yeah.
but that's my personal opinion.
I think MDOT recognized that's, it needs to be signalized. There's too much traffic at that intersection, so. And it's going to increase, y'all. I mean, it's going to go up.
It's gonna go up a lot if we add this, is my concern.
Good.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith?
Thank you.
Anyone in support or against this item, please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety. Make sure that you signed in and our signed-in sheet over there.
How are you this evening? My name is John Tippett. I am the owner of 2105 Highway 51 South, the property that was rezoned to residential a few years ago. And it adjoins on both the west and the north, the property is in question. And I wanted to, first of all, mention a few things. Our house was the historical Weisinger house, which was later the Hardin house. And it basically was a huge dairy farm. And if you go back to even the 57 overlay on the map of DeSoto County, you will see that it's the only thing on the northwest side of that intersection, because it was actually, Robinson was originally the north boundary of the city. And I think that what's different about this property than the ones on the other side is that it's always been residential. Nothing else has ever been there. And I basically did collect a few signatures, and I have a letter kind of going through some of these points, but there's nobody on Robinson or in the Gale subdivision, which is probably, beside myself, the most directly impacted, that thinks this is a good idea. Traffic. I mean, I heard him talking about moving their driveway closer to mine, which means, guess what, everybody's gonna be driving in my driveway by mistake. I just don't see how this contributes to any useful sense of purpose in that part of the city when we have so much commercial development available elsewhere in the I-269 corridor. The traffic increase is a big problem. You know, you're right. You try to walk across Robinson collecting signatures, you can almost get run over, right? And I don't see that this is in the long-term interest of keeping this part of the city's character the way that we have enjoyed it. The city has always done a tremendous job of sending some of the growth towards the other parts of the city, which are not the old area. I think it's actually a little bit of a slight mistake that our home was not actually on the historic register because it was built in 1912. But like I said, it was specifically built right outside the city limits as a huge farm, and I'm pretty sure, based on research, that that farm included all of Northwood Hills, everything down Robinson. And if you notice, there's nothing commercial at all between Robinson on that side and Memphis Street. Never has been, never should be, if you ask me. And that's one of the reasons I, at personal expense, purchased the Hardin property as commercial and had it reverted back, and have spent 10 years restoring it so that it basically is not a lost treasure of the city. It is actually something that contributes to the overall historical sense of the city, even if it's not technically within the historic designated district. So I do not have anything further to add, but I can certainly answer any questions. And I do hope that no matter what happens, we keep all those trees, because that's why nobody actually sees the front of our house. It's screened quite a bit from where it was originally facing Robinson. And I don't know that most people realize that. It actually was facing Robinson when it was built. If there's no questions, I'll be glad to enter these into the minutes. What's the procedure there? Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Anyone else in support or against this item? Please come forward, state your name, address in its entirety.
Hello, I'm Michael McLendon, 2245 Memphis Street. Been there since 1994. How I got into politics was the house caddy corner, the Fairway Mortgage home. And it started out as a C2 and then went to C4. The family worked with us on time restrictions for outdoor music in case it was a restaurant, minimal lighting because you have residential that is directly behind the Fairway Mortgage, as well as it was just to the north. So this home, or this property, will be a home just to the west. You'll have the Tippett home, which is to the north, and then you'll have a piece of property, caddy corner, that goes back to the northwest. I just have a couple requests and a couple questions. Time restrictions. As busy as that little corner is, it goes to sleep about 9 o'clock, 9:30. Just depending on which truck or which race car wants to rev its engines, starting at the dip. So I would ask that time restrictions be put on all businesses if this is rezoned, not just on one of them. I'd also ask that there be no street parking, because it would be impossible to go down Robinson if there's street parking. Not sure on how many bays we're talking about. If we're doing a strip mall, how many bays are we talking about? How many parking areas would this need? And again, on lighting, you have anywhere from 30 and 40-year-olds that own property around it, as well as you've got a 90-year-old. I hope I didn't overguess Ms. Whitfield's. 85, she'll kill me. That is directly beside it. You have children there directly across the street, 2 little girls, and kids on down the street. But the lighting must be at a minimum, and it can't be shooting at others' property. So I just ask that you keep those things in mind when doing this. I want to thank Mr. Mr. Prewett for going from C2, because there's a lot of ugliness that can be in that. And I want to thank him for just taking some of the things out of the C4 that could have been in it. I know as well as anybody that we hurt for commercial. In Hernando, all our commercial are we're at a minimum on commercial. There are areas for commercial, though. There are areas, when Hernando was started, it was a mixed-use community. If you look in the old town, you'll see big lots, you'll see little lots, and then you see commercial lots. So if some of our developers could, keep that old town style, I think we would be better off instead of just doing cookie cutter. But I'll get on that soapbox down the road. But again, I want to thank him, and if we could consider those, the time restrictions, no street parking, maximum number of bays, and then lighting must be at a minimum. I appreciate y'all.
Anybody else in support or against this item? All right.
I've got one question for Austin.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And one more. I'm David Johnson, 408 West Robinson Street, 3 doors down from the intersection. At a 5,000 square foot multi-port shopping center, you're looking at 5 bays, because typically they're 1,000 square feet apiece. That's a lot of people coming in and out. We have a hard enough time going up or down Robinson Street anytime, and I'm sure Miss Billy Whitfield doesn't want to hear somebody dumping a dumpster at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I would just, let's leave it residential and let's all sleep. Thank you.
Austin, I was going to ask you on the C4 zoning, and the last C4 we had a kind of a plan submitted, right? I mean, we don't really have, we have a buildable area plan, but we don't really have a plan, as I would consider a C4 plan, to be required. Am I misguided in that?
Like a project text, it can go both ways. The minimum standard is the site plan and then proposed uses, and then of course it's justification. And so we've seen it both ways, but the minimum standard is that, but we do have some folks go,
The site plan, I would think, would typically have parking spaces and building location, and I don't know, Ben, is that not, that's, we've had limited C4s come through since I've been on the commission, but it's typically, there's kind of a, it's a site plan. It shows parking, building size, setbacks, all that kind of stuff.
It's gone both ways, Shane. You've got some C4s with, it's been C4 for years and years, and it's been vacant for years and years. Property, the mini storage down at the park, Renaissance Drive, south of town, it was on C4 back in the 90s, and it wasn't until a year and a half ago that we presented a site plan. So it goes both ways. You can have C4 property that's sitting there zone C4, and a site plan will come in later. It goes both ways.
Yeah, gotcha.
We were asked, we initially filed for, we knew C2, we did not want C2, because if you read that list, it'll take your breath of what can go into C2. So we said, let's go C1, that's the lightest commercial, and no site plans are required for C1. If I was up here tonight asking for C1 zoning, I wouldn't have the drawing that you have showing the buffers and all that. We just asked for C1 zoning. And you'd get a whole lot more usage than what we showed, but we were asked, would you go to C4 and tell us exactly what's going to go in there? And that's what we've done. We've given you a list, and told you, I guess the big impact thing is the buffers and where the driveways are. And we showed you where the buffers are, what's in the buffers, where the driveways are going to be. Now, what's left is parking lot and a building, and it has to be within that setbacks.
Right, oh, yeah,
It's gotta be in that, we're not, driveways are where we say it's gonna be, buffers are where we just say it's gonna be, so. Does it really matter where the parking lot's on the north, or on the south, or behind the building? I don't see the point in knowing where it's at, so we got buffers.
I think it goes with Mr. Jordan's too about a PUD, is that having a general idea what's gonna go in there. Because if you're gonna use the existing house, kind of like mortgage fund across the street, if you're gonna renovate the house to be a financial business, and maybe another small house or something like that, that would fit the character of the neighborhood, and then it could be commercial. But to put a retail center there might be, we've got people here who voice concerns about it. So thinking, having somewhat of an idea what might go in there might help us out a little bit. I think that's is that what you're kind of getting at, Mr. Jordan? That's what
It is. I feel like, I think the preferred, development in Hernando, what we're trying to go towards is a PUD, just so that we know more about what's going in and we can anticipate it and we see it all at one time. I would feel more comfortable with this if I knew what I was looking at a little bit more. I mean, the list of things that were brought in here, the 13 permitted uses, I think are helpful. Some of them could have some more significant traffic
Well, yeah, like
impact
I
than
said,
others.
if there's a retail center, let's say, let's assume, or hypothetically, and there's a Lenny's or a Domino's to go in there, that's a lot more traffic than a single financial business or some other small business, maybe 3 separate buildings. That dramatically changes the character of the neighborhood when it comes to traffic.
Well, the PUD language can also, that can also dictate what can and can't go in there.
Right.
Times.
Right.
There can be a lot more done that I feel like I would be more comfortable with in this neighborhood right here. I don't think that it's unnecessary. I don't think that necessarily being commercial is a bad thing. Just there's a lot of uncertainty when you just do a blanket rezoning.
If I'm not mistaken, a PUD is a minimum of 4 acres. There is a minimum. I don't think you could do a PUD on a 2-acre
I
lot,
will
so.
say that a PUD in a C4 are very similar. PUD accounts for mixed uses, so typically residential and commercial, or mixed lot sizes, or something that's a little out of the box for the zoning ordinance. Now, to y'all's point about wanting to know what the building's gonna look like, Ben and I talked about that during the application process, and he said I couldn't honestly put something on paper because I don't know. And so I think that might just be the answer, is he doesn't know what the building's gonna look like, and he couldn't fairly give something to y'all that he wouldn't represent. And so, the C4 language about the proposed uses, the general site plan on the buffers, where the entrances and exits are, those are things he could guarantee. But the look of the building is something he could not.
We would need to include those in any motion to approve. The limitations that he cited, it's not in, or is it listed in the motion to approve?
So the C4, by definition, is what's the word I'm looking for? A personalized zoning plan for that piece of property. So similar to when we had Star Landing a few months ago, and they came back and we did not have a project text for the plan, and they brought back that project text too with the uses, the site plan. In that case, they did have a building elevation because the buyer was here representing the application. But the C4 is something that you all have control over, and the applicant can propose as a unique set of uses, a very site-specific site plan. And if you think the building elevations are something that would help you know if it's going to be either in conformance or out of conformance with the general character of the neighborhood, then that might be something to communicate back. But getting to this point, Ben and I talked about it. We went from C1 to C4, and then I asked about how much of the specifics could he get into, and I think this is probably what you could honestly give us to be a plan. And so
I gave you all I could give you, so, at this point. I do believe, I think there is a minimum lot size for a PUD. I think it has to be 4 acres.
We did a PUD on the 2 homes behind the flooring store, and that's not 2 acres.
Right, I think C4 has a minimum of a 1 acre area. I don't know of a minimum lot area in
I might be
PUD.
thinking another South Haven or someone, but I don't have it.
5,000 square feet, Austin, and you might be able to help me with this, Mr. Smith, too. What is our required number of parking spaces?
So technically, it would depend on the uses that go into those tenant spaces, but it's typically 1 space for every 200 square feet of leasable area. So you're looking at
25.
25 spaces. And like
Is that what y'all planned on doing? I mean, you're not going to come back and ask for less or more, I guess, 25s.
No, we have no, we're not coming back for variance, if that's the question, no. It would, just maximum 5,000 with the required parking that's required in there. And if it's 5,000, it's 1 per 200, you're talking about 25 parking spaces. And I tell you the truth, you think about, in the scheme of things, 25 parking, 25 cars, maybe it switches out 4 times, or you have 100 cars over a 14-hour day. That's compared with the traffic that you see at that intersection, it's minimal. But,
Any other questions, Mr. Smith? Anybody else for and against? Come on. State your name and address in its entirety.
My name is Valentine
It's probably too close to a
Hines,
church.
and I live at 340, I'm sorry, I live at 340 West Robinson, the house that's being, or next, the one that's on the corner. And I was just gonna say, I'm not good at this, sorry. That house, like that corner right there, I sit outside a lot, and, the families, they're Memphis Street, they have the festivals and all that. Like, people park right there, and people fly down that street really bad. So I feel like if there's a business there, that it would be even worse. Because, they fly down Robinson now. So I could not see, that whole thing happening. And the businesses across the street, they're not really retail. They're more like insurance company, eyeglass place, a travel agent. So they're not something that people are constantly going in and out of. So I just feel like, that corner would be just dangerous to have a business there. That's basically. I just want.
Council, my name's Kenny Francis. I live at 340 West Robinson with Tina here. We've made that our home for Kenny Francis. That's been our home for the past 6 years. We have I know we rent it, but it's become our home. And I don't want to lose our home. So I'm begging the council, please don't do this. We've made that house our home for the past 6 years. We've redone everything ourselves. Miss Billy Whitfield, she loves us being her neighbor, and we don't want to lose our home. So thank you.
Just real quickly, I just want to make sure that what I handed the letter and the signatures do get entered into the record. Is that done? I don't know the procedure. I just want to make sure that they're entered into the minutes. Okay. Okay, and I had a final question, because I don't really understand where the water runoff from any development is going to go. As you know, that has had just a long history of the culvert getting clogged up in the front yard. And I'm just curious if there's been any thought given as to how to handle that water runoff with the application that's been submitted.
I think we're real early on that. Yes, it's just the rezoning right now. I don't want to speak out of place. That's Austin's tomorrow.
Correct. The official drainage would come during permit review. but the general rule is pre and post-development runoff has to be equal or better than it was before development, so that's what I can tell you for now until the official plans come in.
Anyone else in support or against this item? All right, is there a motion to approve or deny this item?
I guess I'm still confused, Austin, if we are to approve it, and I don't know, we don't have to list, we don't have to say that we're including the plan specifics. How is that part of the approval, or how does that limit?
So the applicant proposal is very similar to a PUD. When you approve a PUD and the plan text governs that piece of property, these uses in that site plan would govern that piece of property.
For the site plan for this?
Yep.
Is that unique to this because it's a C4?
C4 is planned commercial, so C4 is, that's why, like, I mentioned the Star Landing property earlier. When someone came and wanted to develop that C4 property at Star Landing in 51, and we could not find the plan text, that's why it came back to you, because there was no plan text on file. So that plan text is the zoning for that piece of property.
That makes more sense to me. I just didn't understand that because C4 is unique. Okay, if that wasn't included in the site.
Anything extra tonight would be needed in the motion.
I think there was a discussion of lighting too, and I think that would be important as well.
We do require a photometric plan to show 0-foot candle spill off the property, but if you want to specifically state that in the motion, that would help as well.
I'm confused too, because part of our role here is to kind of monitor and control development. And I'm worried about that neighborhood if we don't know what's going in there. It's C4, we're rezoning a piece of property to C4, and then we wash our hands of it, and they don't even know what's going in there yet. Could be anything, according to what's on the C4 list. And it's my example, if we don't know, it could be the highest commercial traffic generating business, or it could be 3 or 4 cars a day. It just depends what they choose to put in there. But our role is to kind of help control that development a little bit when there's other places in the city for more commercial. And going back to Mr. Jordan, I'm a little confused why we don't have a little bit more information to make an intelligent decision on this one, or an informed decision, excuse me.
I would feel a lot better with more information too. I think tabling it would be better than a denial, but it doesn't sound like, Mr. Smith, y'all are close to having any more information. You don't anticipate, if we tabled it, you would have any more information?
In whichever motion y'all choose to pursue, just please note that 1.85 rather than that 4.85.
Could I approach one more time? Is there something on those lists, is there something on that list that you think could be high volume generating?
Retail center.
A retail center?
Sure.
I think daycare facilities, especially during their peak drop-off hours, can be pretty high volume.
Yeah, you would have, 2 times a day, you'd have some traffic generating, yeah.
Those were the things that stood out to me. Maybe the bakery, but
Food service. Are you suggesting limiting that list based on the
No, I would just, it seemed like what you're focusing on is a high traffic generating use that may go in there, and I'm trying to think of a strip center with 4 or 5 bays, and I'm visualizing Getwell Road and some other places of what is there that generates.
I'm thinking like over there on Mackingville where the Domino's is at.
Yeah.
It's small retail, but it's got 5, 6 bays in there. I don't know how many exactly. It's got the
Well, it did.
Domino,
The
whatever.
gentleman just said that most bays are 20-foot wide.
Yeah.
And 50-foot deep. They're 1,000 at the smallest and 1,200. So either 4 or 5 bays would be the maximum there, and I'm sorry, Bruce. He said if you're concerned about nursery, he'll eliminate nursery.
Daycare
That
facility
would
and
be the
nursery school?
highest, I think, at a specific time of day would be a nursery.
That's daycare facility and nursery school? Because there's a school.
Daycare and nursery school would be eliminated.
I could see that current structure being renovated to be like another mortgage office or an insurance building, maybe insurance office, something like that. That would maintain the character of the neighborhood. It would be limited traffic. I think everybody would perhaps concede to something like that.
We'll scratch number 3 and number 8, and we'll put a 10 o'clock closing for the whole list for foot traffic. You say, well, we mentioned Domino's. I don't know where they deliver pizza after 10 o'clock, but there would be no in-store sales after 10 o'clock. So you can say no in-store sales or services after 10 o'clock in-store.
I think we need to be careful about if it says C4, and then proposed list of things that they can put there, then we go through and say, yeah, this is what you can do, but I don't want this one, I don't want this one. We need to be, if it fits what the requirements are, we need to kind of, we don't want to double down on the list. The list says these are things required, and then we say, I don't like this one in there. And it may have something to do with the location that we're doing this. Just want to, you ought to be thinking about that.
I think that's what Austin's telling us we can do.
I think the list was provided by the applicant, right?
This is a designer zoning. You can design the uses whatever you want it to be, and it will govern, even though he may sell it, it goes with the land. So whatever uses you finally determine that you think is appropriate, and he does too and agrees to, that will what govern that development, that lot, until we come back before you, or someone comes back before you asking for a zoning change or a text change. But this list is all that's going to be able to go on that lot. And it is a give and take normally. I'll agree to this if you'll agree to this. But we have no problem with eliminating 3 and number 8, and that there be no foot traffic after 10 o'clock on any of the other uses.
What about limiting the parking to 25 vehicles?
Well, that you're already limited. 1 per 200. So
Yeah, but I
maximum
think you can
building
build
we
more,
do-
but you just can't build less. I understand.
That's a 1 per, yeah, 1 per 2. You're correct. That's a minimum number on the thing,
Yeah.
but I can't do that.
Well, I'm talking about, not maxing,
Yeah,
not building
right.
40.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't think
can't
there's
do
room
that.
for it, frankly.
Well, it's, I can't do that because the dentist office, You're gonna have probably a doctor or dentist office, you're gonna have 7 or 8 employees there, and they're gonna take 7 or 8 of your 25, so. Then you got 4 others, so we can't do that. We can't limit the number of parking spaces.
Would you be agreeable to no on-street parking? I know there is some on-street parking on Robinson that folks.
Yeah, we don't govern that. On-street parking is a city, that's the city, but that's by ordinance, y'all. I'm sure you got some kind of ordinance that prohibits on-street parking. We have no objections to it, obviously. You're sure not gonna park on 51. And the frontage on Robertson Road is very short, but no, that's you, the city's the one that regulates on-street parking. We don't have anything to do with it.
That's true.
And it's 2 lanes, Robinson is 2 lanes, and it's curb and gutters, that you couldn't park there anyway. I think we've, this is good, going back and forth. This is the purpose of the C4 PUD, is to do this, what we're doing right here, so I hope it's something we can all agree to, so.
Now, the only comment I have is, I know traffic is going to be an issue, but I wish we had in place some type of architectural standard, being that close to, the historic area. And this is something we've talked about before when we were talking about adopting the comprehensive plan. I made a suggestion that we have some architectural standards for different areas. Just being so close to downtown, I would hate to see it just be a brick box, just. That's my only comment.
Do we have any architectural?
We do have design review standards, they're just not district-specific. We have the historic districts, of course, and those are above and beyond our regular design standards, but the typical design standards govern everything else. It's administrative the way we enforce it, but
A motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of a rezoning requested by Mr. Ben Smith, IPD Solutions, representing Prewett Holdings, owner of properties of a 1.85 acre parcel of land from its current zoning in the R12 Single Family Residential District, medium density, to the C4 Planned Commercial District, consisting of parcel numbers 308-613-001, 0001800, and 308613-001-0001900, is located on the west side of Highway 51 and north of West Robinson Street. More specifically, 2165 U.S. Highway 51 South and 340 West Robinson Street in Section 13, Township 3 South, and Range 8, based upon the findings in 1, 2, and 3. And I would also, Austin, you may have to help me on this, but I would also included in the motion that they have to comply with the city's lighting requirements that Mr. Cardosi laid out earlier, and
Time of operation.
10 p.m. closing to all business, to foot traffic for all businesses located in the area.
there was mention of some uses being struck as well.
Oh, yeah, and I was going to include that as well. with including the applicant's agreement to strike daycare facilities and nursery schools from the list of uses permitted in the area.
A second?
I'll second it.
All right. May we have the vote?
Commissioner Thorne?
Nay.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Nay.
Commissioner Skeen?
Nay.
Motion to approve this item is denied. Didn't pass. So now, we need another motion.
I'm sorry, I told him they did. I thought that motion failed for that.
We have to do something, don't we? We have to deny.
You can make another motion, but right now it's.
Yeah,
Right.
we either have to table it now or we have to.
Pass. Your motion didn't pass. Someone can make another motion.
Well, the motion is to go forward is recommended to deny, and it's at the October 18th meeting.
The motion recommended, except for the October 18th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is PL 1656, Mcgee Trucking Conditional Use for a mining permit.
Thought it was going to deny that.
I was about to make a motion to deny right before you. You beat me to it.
We can talk about that one. We can talk about this one.
They did not.
That's a tough
I'm
one.
kind of the same way.
Oh, really?
So, the next item is PL 1656, Mcgee Trucking Conditional Use for a mining permit. Request for a conditional use to mine dirt and clay gravel in the M2 zone. The subject property is located between Industrial Drive and McCracken Road, south of Vaden Road in Section 19, Township 3, Range 7. John Crawley, representing JTS Capital, the landowner. Mr. Cardoso, will you present the staff report and comments?
Yes, sir. This is project PL 1656, and as you mentioned, it's the request for a conditional use permit to mine organic material, dirt and clay gravel in the M2 zoning district. John Crawley's here tonight representing the applicant, Mcgee Trucking. The subject property on the south side Industrial Drive, and it's important to note that there are two industrial drives. This is the easternmost Industrial Drive. The other is Industrial Drive West that leads to the jail, so this is a separate road. Section 19, Township 3, Range 7. The use is listed as a conditional use in the M2 zoning district, but the board may want to consider the criteria for approval in the agricultural district, and I'll briefly go over those. That a bond is posted for the road and the haul route along which the trucks would be traveling to haul the material. The excavation, once complete, is reclaimed to not have more than a 3-to-1 slope, and after talking to Mr. Crawley, I believe he's agreed to that. The city roads properly cared for, and he's met with the city engineer to determine the haul route, which is included in the staff report. that no materials extracted within 100 feet of the center line of the road or within 50 feet of any property line. I don't believe the applicant proposes to do this, but no washing of gravel is permitted unless a filtration system is provided to prevent pollution of nearby streams. And then no city roads will be hauled on unless permission by it says district supervisor, but city engineer is the applicable language. The way this application started is a grading permit was applied for, and we were in discussions of the grading permit and the tree ordinance of mitigation. And the applicant asked about hauling materials out on a commercial basis and selling the fill that was excess on the site. And so in the M2 zoning district, a conditional use is required for minerals, earths, quarrying, extraction, grinding, crushing, and/or processing. So that's what the request is tonight. The applicant provided the haul route after meeting with the city engineer, and then has provided that it's projected to last about 18 months, a maximum of 20 trips per day, and has provided the operating hours of 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. With this being a conditional use, the following criteria is what we should be keeping in our consideration tonight. How this proposed use will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. The applicants provided a response to that. How the proposed use will not increase or substantially increase fire hazards. It will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. It will not adversely affect the general welfare of the city. How it will not overtax public utilities or community facilities, and how it conforms to the recommendations of the city's general development plan. So the applicant has provided responses to each of those questions, and like I mentioned earlier, if recommended or if approved tonight, I would recommend that we do follow the same criteria as mining in the agricultural district, which include all the stuff I just talked about the bond, the where you can excavate, the finished slopes. If this is approved, the applicant shall apply for all necessary MDEQ permits and then finalize the tree permit that we're currently in discussion on whether mitigation is going to be required with a payment or replanting of trees. In accordance with the zoning ordinance, any person aggrieved with this decision can appeal with our office in 10 days, and that appeal goes in front of the Board of Aldermen on October 18th. And we do request that appeal be in writing to our office. We do have proposed motions to approve, deny, and/or table in your staff report based on the applicant's proposal. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is available as well.
Any question, Mr. Cadosa from the commission?
So there will be a bond posted for like the damage of the roads?
I would recommend that we include language to require that the applicant get that bond through the city engineer.
Is there a recommendation on the bond amount?
It'd be determined by the city engineer based on the number of trucks, and we are looking at an overlay on Vaden Road, and so whether it's fresh pavement or old pavement, but the city engineer determines all of that.
Is that overlay already planned for that road? Because that road's probably one of the worst roads in the city.
It is planned, but it's not done yet.
Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety?
Good evening. Thank you all. My name is John Crawley. I represent V. Mcgee Incorporated out of Olive Branch. The owner of this property, my address is 1401 Highway 30 East, New Albany, Mississippi. Austin pretty much covered most of it. My client purchased this property just really over a year ago, and his sole direct intent in purchasing it and obtaining the grading permit is simply to clear it and grub it and grade it and market it for sale. The reason for applying for this conditional use is not to go in and strip the property and mine the property and leave huge gigantic pits like you see on the side of interstate highways and things like that. The way this came up was during the grading operations, we're going to have some excess dirt that's going to be left over. It's going to be stockpiled for the meantime, and the idea came up, since the guy's a trucking company, hey, if we've got, a lot of excess dirt here, why not us be able to extract it and sell it off the property if it's just going to be excess. So it's not going to be one of those daily operations where you're going to be seeing trucks in and out, in and out. More than likely, what's going to happen is they're going to be out there grading, and as they run into excess dirt, they're going to stockpile it. And if somebody wants that dirt, they'll sell it to them. So probably what you're going to see is just a day or two here and there, a few trucks coming in and out while these piles of excess dirt are taken care of. So I really want to stress, because, you know, you read mining permit and clay and gravel, you think about these huge operations with giant machines. That's not the intent here at all. This guy really just wants to grade this property, prepare to sell it, and make money off of it. And, you know, if the opportunity is there for him to sell a little of the excess dirt, he would just like the ability to do that.
I think Mr. Cardosi mentioned something about, anytime we do a conditional use, we have to put a time limit on it. And he had mentioned something about 18 months.
Yeah.
Is that sufficient for y'all's purposes?
I would think so. Again, you know, the grading permit that they're under now, they've cleared maybe 5 or 6 acres as of right now. The property, when they bought it, was clear cut probably 12, 13 years ago. So it's mostly scrub, and so the clearing's going pretty quick. There were a few large specimen trees that we identified, and we're working with Austin on those. But yeah, I wouldn't think it would take these guys probably anywhere even 18 months to get this property where they need to stabilize it, erosion control it, and stick up a for sale sign.
And they're going to be doing this during the 18 months. They're going to be doing the grading and everything, fixing the drainage.
Yeah.
Putting the dirt to the side as someone needs it or they can sell it.
Yeah,
That's what
So the property right now is just hilly. It's got gullies and everything. There's a couple of old ponds that the levees were cut. Their goal is basically just to go in there and level it out. So if somebody wants to come in with a warehouse facility or a manufacturing facility, they can come in and spec a building and build it without having to worry about moving 3/4 of
So essentially, he's wanting
yards of dirt.
Develop an industrial plot or industrial
Yes,
plat.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It just throws up 20 trips per day at 12 vehicles an hour. That's 240 vehicles.
20 vehicles a
That's
day.
what it says, 20 trips per day at 12 vehicles per hour. 240 trucks a day, that's a lot of traffic.
Well, that would be a miscommunication. It was not intended to be that many. So it was kind of broken down into hours and days. So I just guessed 12 vehicles maximum per hour or 20 maximum per day. So, but no, sir, I would not estimate it being 240 vehicles a day. That would be almost constant.
Right, yeah, that's.
And they're not going to do that, no, sir.
And it's moving dirt, like you're just clearing dirt tonight. It's not a gravel pit, like you said.
No, sir. They're out there with tractors and pans and dozers. And like I said, you know, as they run into excess dirt when they're filling these hills and stuff, they'll just stockpile it in one spot. And then if they get an interested buyer, they'll come in and sell it. Yeah, there's no intention of setting up a mining facility to wash gravel and do all that. This is strictly just a excavating operation.
Austin, why is this a conditional use then? I mean, if you're developing, if you're just developing a piece of land like a regular plat would be, this type of operation would be normal anyway, right? Why is it a conditional use?
If it's just the grading, it would be allowed by right. It's the selling of the dirt that generated the trucks in and out is what triggered the conditional use.
So when we applied for, the reason this came about, when we applied for the MDEQ mining permit, because in order to sell dirt, you have to have one of those. One of their requirements is to have city approval. And so that's when I approached Austin about this, hey, does zoning allow for this? And he said, well, not really, unless you have a conditional use. So here we are.
I see where we're at. So
Yeah.
the idea of developing the land is going to generate excess of dirt. So the owner says, let's sell the dirt, which required the permit, which
Correct.
required the bond, which required conditional use.
Yes, sir.
The dominoes fall in all kinds of directions.
They do indeed.
It's not easy to do anything, is
They
it?
do, yes, sir. I agree with you.
Dirt's got to go somewhere, why not?
That's right. Yes, sir. The only thing that I will ask, and it's not a question, and obviously it has to be answered tonight, it's just something to kind of mull over. And I ask this because I'm going to get asked, is about the bonding of the roadway. So there's a new concrete plant that just opened there on Industrial not too long ago. that does generate constant traffic. And, you know, my client's probably going to ask, if he's asked to put in a bond and he's generating far less traffic than the concrete plant is, why is he being asked to bond a road that the concrete trucks are destroying? So I just throw that out there as something to think about. And I've talked with Joe Frank, the city engineer, about that, and he's mulling that over, because that's one of the things that the client has already asked me about. He said, look, if we're only talking at most a few trucks a day and not even on a daily basis, why am I going to bond a road to sit there and watch the concrete trucks?
Is the bond part of the permit, though?
Well, the bond would potentially be a condition of the conditional use approval. So if you approve the conditional use with the condition that he bond the road, then he's going to have to put up a bond to repair the road that is, already destroyed and will be. So that's the only question that I would just kind of throw out there for food for thought.
Well, you're also going, that's just going to cover that road, will it? It'll cover, the route that I looked at turns on to Commerce.
And we could just leave it up to the determination of the city engineer, because he probably knows it a lot better than we would with the ongoing maintenance. But that's a fair point.
I was gonna say the same thing. Joe Frank will know. If it doesn't need to be there, then it can be a very low bond or a
Sure.
or a
And
zero
it's not
bond.
that my client is opposed to that. When we had our discussions, his eyebrows kind of jumped, and he says, look, there's 100 concrete trucks going in and out of their day. Why am I going to bond for their work? So he was just, I put that out there because I'm going to get asked.
No, that's a good question.
Oh, yeah.
So we can make in the motion say, contingent upon the city engineer's discretion.
Other questions for Mr. Crawford?
If we're not doing 12 hours or 12 vehicles per hour, what would be a better estimate?
Well, that's just hard. Really, that's just me guessing. Because, they could go out there and move dirt for a whole week and stockpile, a big thing that might take them half a day to sell and haul off. And so you might be looking at 12 vehicles an hour or so that's difficult for me to say. The only thing I can tell you is that it's not going to be a constant in and out operation where you're going to have dozens of trucks going in and out of that property every day.
Could we change that amount of, that number on the condition?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's just a lot of vehicles per, if it was to get to 12 vehicles per hour, it's a lot for that. You drive down there at 3 o'clock, Commerce already is just bumper to bumper already as it is. You know how the residents feel, so that's just my thoughts on it.
No, you break it down, that's what, one truck moving every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a convoy.
Yeah, that's,
I
I
mean,
think
I-
the 20 trips per day is what helps throw it off too, is what you're referring to
Yeah.
also, because you got 12 per hour, a maximum 20 per day, trips per day for each truck. I think that's why the math is coming up.
Yeah, and that's probably, like I said, that's a miscommunication, because it certainly was not my intent to say they're going to be pushing 200 vehicles.
It's
in and
either,
out of
what you're
there
saying, it's
a day.
either or potentially,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it spurts, right? So it might be a 1-2
Yeah,
full days of activity. And
they
they'll
may
dry
have a
up.
big pile of dirt down there right now, and they've found a buyer, so they're gonna go in there, and they're gonna run it until they get rid of that pile of dirt, which may take them 3 or 4 hours, and they may run 25, 30 trucks out of there, but then they're done by lunch, and that's it. And then you won't see them back in there probably for another couple of weeks or ever. So, this is more or less contingency than anything else. We've discovered there's going to be some excess dirt over this process, and the guy was just like, hey, if I've got excess dirt, can I sell it? Well, look, you got a permit, and so that's when the snowball started kicking up.
Did you review the other staff comments?
I did.
Do you have any issue with the tractor within 100 feet of the center line?
I don't have a problem with that.
Or within 50 feet of the property line? Y'all aren't going to wash gravel, so I don't think
No, we're not, and to the best of their ability, they're gonna maintain property line buffers to the north, really there. They're bounded on the east and west by industrial west and east, I guess. To the south, there's a power line easement that they're not gonna go past because there's a blue line stream down there. We don't wanna deal with the Army Corps of Engineers right now, so that they're really not even messing with about a third of the property that they actually have right now.
Any other questions, Mr. Crowell? Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Anyone in support or against this item, please come forward and state your name and address in this entirety. Their motion to approve or deny this item?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the application by John Crawley, representing Mcgee Trucking, owner of the property, for the request of a conditional use to allow mining of materials, specifically dirt and clay gravel. Subject property is located on the south side of Industrial Drive and west of McCracken Road in Section 19, Township 3, Range 7, based on items 1 through 6. And I think just as a clarification, the maximum number of trucks per day was 20 per day. Was that good?
That would be my guess.
Okay.
Maximum number of trips?
Yes.
Trips.
Yeah.
Are you gonna
Is that
include
part of the
time limit?
motion?
I want to add that number, or just clarify, yeah, as a clarifying point, maximum number of trips per day will be 20.
Time, 18 months.
Oh, yeah, and then 18 months on the time for the conditional use. Oh, yes, and then the bond would be, I mean, that's just our standard,
Or you just want to say
operating procedure.
including staff comments.
Staff comments?
Yeah, including staff comments, which I thought I did 1 through
A through D.
Oh, A through D, I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
May we have a vote?
Make sure that we got everything. Approve as written in the staff report, maximum number of trips per day, 20 for an 18-month time limit, and being approved with the staff comments.
Yes.
Or you're not gonna put the bond at Joe Frank's
That's in
discretion?
the comments.
Well, I think it's in the staff comments.
Oh, it is, okay, good deal.
Okay. Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brumbelow?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. The
I
next,
think on the staff comments, he's required to do a bond.
Yeah.
I don't think it's discretionary.
At the
How I
discretion of the
But
city
it doesn't say
engineer.
the amount or anything, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay,
Joe
it's
Frank
the
could make it
discretion
a
of Joe
little-
Frank, okay.
Yeah, if he wanted to make it low, or,
Yeah.
the next item is PL 1658, Holiday Inn Express height variance. Request for height variance to exceed the allowable 35 feet height in the C2 zone. The subject property is located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of McInville Road, in Section 17. Township 3 South, Range 7 West. Nick Crugan, representing Cal Patel, developer of the property. Mr. Cadoza, will you present your staff's reports and comments?
Yes, sir. Project number PL 1658, as you just mentioned, it's to allow, a request to allow a zoning height variance for a 4-story hotel, 15 foot taller than the 35-foot allowance, so a 50-foot top of parapet height. Nick Croonan actually has a representative tonight. Apologize, I didn't catch your name, but representing Cal Patel, the owner's designated agent. This is a proposal for Holiday Inn Express. The commission previously approved Creekside Commercial subdivision on the north side of Creekside Boulevard. This proposal will be on Lot 1, so the westernmost lot of those two lots. A 2-acre parcel, like I said, north of Creekside Boulevard, east of McInville Road. For the consideration of a zoning variance, I'll read the criteria for approval, just for the record, and the applicant has provided responses to each of these, that the special conditions and circumstances that exist are peculiar to the land, structures, or buildings involved and are not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. The literal enforcement of the provisions of these standards would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by the other properties within the same district under the terms of this ordinance. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant or are not based upon economic considerations, and that granting the variance requested would not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is otherwise denied by the ordinance to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. And so I read those to say that we did approve an application for height variance across the street from this proposal for the Home 2 suites, but variances are a case-by-case basis, and so unique characteristics to the lot, topography, the site in general is what we should base our decision-making around. The applicant has provided some building elevations to the staff report and a site plan. The building is oriented north to south, and like I said, is situated on a 2-acre lot on the western portion of the property. And so the building elevations you see are the latest iteration through our design review process. This is not the finished product, but it's where we're at right now. So I expect some tweaks to the elevations, but the parapets you see and the 50-foot height, just to give you scale of what the buildings see. And then the orientation of the building and the site plan. Some considerations of the plat in general is there's a 50-foot non-disturb buffer on the eastern side of this plat. And this hotel is about 450 feet from the rear property lines of the neighbors on the subdivision to the east. And so, like I said, the applicant's available, and then all supporting materials are in your staff report, but if you have any questions, please let me know. And I apologize, I didn't catch your name on the way in, but he's representing Nick Croonan tonight.
All right, any question from Mr. Cardoza?
This is the second, like you said, because we did the Home 2, and I know Hampton Inn was a few years ago. Are we getting to the point where we need to change the ordinance? Or are these coming?
We've talked about that, either getting rid of or increasing the height requirement in C2, but we haven't done it yet. Or specifically for a hotel, because the 4-story product is becoming more common. And we've talked about, do we need to make the height requirement top of parapet or put a window height requirement? Just some things we're considering, but we haven't decided yet.
And this is probably off topic, but is there a way that Hernando can't be any more than a 3-story hotel? With inside, when you get out to the I-69 corridor, that's good. Locations like this where Home 2 is there something we could do as a city? Are you going to bring in one of these brand national hotel chains? 3-story is your maximum.
You could probably create an overlay district, say downtown or, along Creekside Boulevard, and put a height requirement on the use of hotel. Is something you could do, but specifically say it could only be 3 stories would probably be pretty difficult.
Well, whatever 3-story height would be.
But
Because I'm looking at the land behind that. That's prime for another one, right behind it. And now we're getting into that neighborhood like we had to discuss with the Home 2, down in the backyards.
Where can you build higher than 35 foot? What zoning? Like M?
M1 allows some increased height, and then in the C3, which is downtown or general commercial, there's a provision where it's similar to signage with increased area, but the farther you're back from a property line, you get extra foot of height up to 120 feet. I don't know the exact equation, but you can go up to 120 feet. And then in PUD, you kind of dictate your own height requirement.
I know C2, 35 is pretty standard. I'm working on a project in Olive Branch doing this exact same thing, asking for a variance for a client in a C2 zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 2 alternate designs. There's a 3-story design and a 4-story design in case we don't get it. It's a common issue, I think. I don't know where the 35 came from, if it was a fire safety thing originally, or if, I don't know where that limit came from.
How many feet we were asking on this one?
50. I believe the previous request was for 52, top of parapet.
53, 52?
52, I thought, top of parapet.
Right.
And so, yeah, this one's for 50.
50 is the top of parapet on this one.
Correct.
Will the applicant please come forward and state your name and address in its entirety?
I'm Alex Gagne with Civil Inc. My address is 1058 Greenwich Drive, Hernando, Mississippi, and I'm representing Cal Patel. The diagram that Nick sent me, the top of the parapet was 58 feet. The top of the building is 50 feet. So the bottom of the parapet was 50 and the top of the building is 58.
Yeah, just
That's
looking
what
at
I
that,
was-
58 and a quarter inch.
The request on the application was for 50, but the latest iteration of the plan shows,
I know in Olive Branch, it
Yeah,
doesn't go
58
to
is
the
what they're showing.
top of the parapet, like there's a measurement, it's like halfway between the top floor
That's
and the
what it
top.
is.
There's some, yeah.
basically the top of the roof versus the top pitch, I think is what it says, and then you take
Look at
half of
that
those in
second,
between.
It's 50 feet right there, top of the roof. It's
Okay.
50 feet right there. 58. Wouldn't the height variance include the height of the parapet?
Well, it tells you in the zoning ordinance how you measure, where is the top of the building for the, and it's not the top of the parapet, it's some set equation.
So if we're approving a 50-foot variance, we're just approving the rooftop.
The definition of roof, is like Shay said, is defined as like the top pitch down halfway to the top of the roof. And so I guess that's where the 50-foot request came from Nick.
I see it here. It's on the second drawing.
Yeah, it's kind of strange how they.
How
that
tall
works.
is the, you said 52 feet is the top of the parapet on the
Another 8
home
feet.
suites?
The request for Home 2 Suites was 52 feet, and the top of the parapet wall, I'll have to look at the plan if they defined, because like if a roof vent comes up, and maybe you have to put a 4-foot parapet to screen the utility like required, if that's where they got the 52-foot from, I'll have to look at the plan there. But generally speaking, the roof of this hotel will be 50 feet tall. The parapet where you see the stone cladding along the windows in the middle above the entrance is where the 58 comes from.
Yeah, it's kind of playing with numbers because it's an actual, 23-foot variance.
Yeah, the thing about it is though, our zoning ordinance tells you where to go to, you know what I mean? Like, so they have to,
52.
They're just
Say
following
that's
our
50.
ordinance, right?
yeah.
Say that's 58. This top of the roof is like the middle of these two.
I agree, it's confusing. I don't know why it wouldn't just be the tallest thing, ultimately, but.
Any other questions for Mr. Anyone in support or against this item, please come forward and state your name and address. Is there a motion to approve or deny this item?
I'm just looking at the zoning ordinances and When it's C2 is maximum, it just says maximum building height 35 feet / 2 stories.
About the definition of roof.
Well, that's all it says on the, well, I'm just looking at the table that's in here. Sorry, I'm looking quickly, so I missed something. But I didn't really see anything within the proposed uses. It of course defines about radio and television towers, antennas, earth stations. It doesn't have anything about other buildings that I saw.
And to be clear, if you want to consider this application individually, you can say, as shown on applicant proposal, so if it's a 58-foot parapet along the stone cladding and a 50-foot everywhere else, that's something you can consider as well. But I think what Shay's talking about is the definition of roof, or building height. I can't
Building
remember.
height definition, yeah. No, I don't know where, if it's in our zoning
It
ordinance
should
or
be in the
design.
definitions for building height.
I mean, we can do it however y'all want to do it. I don't see building height.
We have a motion.
It says roof line, the highest point of the coping on a flat roof, Bossman, mansard, or parapet wall.
Ours may be different. I know
I'll have to check.
Olive Branches was very specific. It had for different types of roofs, If you had a gable end, it was one thing. If you had a parapet, it was one thing. Not sure about ours.
Yeah, I'm not finding it either.
That's right.
Look at, I was asking Austin about the last one. I think that number was 52, so
Yeah, for the home two suites.
in motion, but
We just weren't sure if that was the top of the building or the top of the parapet.
I think the motion is what it is. Motion.
On this proposed motion.
Right, and if you want to be more specific to note, well, maybe you want 52 or 58 feet only on raised parapet for stone cladding.
Yeah.
Because the building's going to be generally almost the exact same height. It's the stone cladding of the extra 6 foot to screen their HVAC on the roof is what.
We just have to be specific about it.
Right.
I mean, we don't want to do 50 feet and then run into an issue. I'll make a motion to approve a zoning height variance requested by Nick Cronin on behalf of Kyle Patel, the designated agent of the property, to allow construction of a 4-story hotel building with a maximum height, roof height of 50 feet, 15 feet taller than the maximum 35-foot height allowable by the zoning ordinance in the C2 Highway Commercial District as reflected upon the building elevations submitted in the application on property identified as parcel number 307-417-00000000202, more specifically known as 1100 Creekside Boulevard, the future Lot 1 of Creekside Boulevard, commercial subdivision, a 2-acre parcel located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of Mackinville Road, based upon the findings in A, B, C, and D, and to allow the construction of a parapet wall not to exceed 58 feet 4 inches, or as set forth in the site plan submitted within the, submitted by the applicant. 58 feet and a quarter inch.
A second?
Second.
How to vote?
Been adding too much to this.
Commissioner Thorne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Aye.
Commissioner Brimbelow?
Aye.
Commissioner Max?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Motion to approve this item passes. That ends our new business. Now, when we get into other business, for those who want to talk about the planning commission training,
Yes, sir. First of all, let's welcome our new planning commissioner, Justin Max, taking Mr. Robert Carter's position. Glad to have you, and to lead into our next item, I think it'd be a good time to have a planning commissioner training, which we've got scheduled for October 27th, 10:30 to 1:30. We plan to provide lunch. It's at the DeSoto Council's conference room at Pepper Chase Drive, right by the Lander Center. I plan to do a presentation. We've got the president of Mississippi APA coming in to do a presentation. I've got Oxford's city attorney that specializes in land use coming to do a presentation on the legal aspects. Renee Millette, Paul Watkins is coming to do a legal presentation. And then we've got an ethics presentation from Tom Hood from the Ethics Commission via Zoom. So we hope everybody can make it. If you can't, we plan to have the availability of Zoom if absolutely required. We have a few spots for a Zoom call if you need to participate virtually. But October 27th from 10:30 to 1:30 up at the DeSoto Council's conference room. So we look forward to seeing everybody there for that. So we've got to save the date in your packet. Just, I'll send a reminder email closer to time with the agenda, itinerary, and everything like that. And then the last item, I think I just got one picture together tonight. I do plan to get that done before the next meeting for some names and pictures on the website for our planning commissioners. Other than that, that's all I got for tonight.
all right. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
As we're talking about